Come on, remote. Alright. So, I'm going to try and sum this up real quick. I'm going to be making a series of guides on what the different cards in Back 4 Blood do, for how the card system works. Essentially, the way the game works is there are 4 different colors of cards. There are blue, red, green, yellow cards. So each of the first 4 parts you can kind of watch interchangeably. It's basically just going to be explaining what the different cards do and if they're good or not. Then the 5th video is going to be different build guides, explaining the different builds. Now I have a build set up for every character plus kind of a generic build. But the important thing to note is that there are going to be 7 general builds in the game. And I'm just going to sum them up real quick. Your first build is melee. You can build that a bunch of different ways, but at the end of the day, they're all going to be classified as just melee. Your second build is support. This, again, you can build this a couple of different ways, but at the end of the day, it's support. You're not having much room, much variation amongst, like all the melee characters are going to run the same 4 to 5 cards with a couple of interchangeable ones. All the supports are going to run the same 4 to 5 cards with a couple interchangeable ones. There are 2 gun builds. 2. Gun build A is basically secondaries, and gun build B is essentially no secondaries. So it doesn't matter at all about the gun build. There's a lot of different gun builds you can make. It literally comes down to the secondary, because the cards that you choose play a huge role into whether you need a secondary, whether you need a primary. So they're going to split into 2 categories. And the other 3 builds are seemingly kind of mean. You have a speed running build that's literally just based around stamina and running through the map. This isn't really a serious build, but it's serious enough for solo players who are just trying to run through levels, find ridden hives, clear them, get the hell out. The other one that you have is the pack mule build. This is where you carry all of your team's items, extra offense, extra quick, extra support inventory, extra ammo, extra weapons, extra whatever. Because this is very good having a designated pack mule character on higher difficulties. And the last slot really doesn't fit in anything as a copper build, because copper is the currency that you're using in the game to make sure that you're able to, afford the things you're trying to afford. So, that's your brief overview. This one, we are going to be talking about the blue cards in the game. We're going to be explaining to you what the blue cards specifically do, and we're going to break them down into one of 3 categories. You have trash cards, you have situational cards, which are cards that can work in a certain build, and you have good cards, which good cards are going to be kind of situational, but they're, no matter what, they're going to be used in that situational build. So, fitting into one of the types. So let's talk about each of the cards and explain what they do, because I think a lot of people misunderstand how some cards work, although that's more for the red cards. Now, anytime a card has a red indicator, that is supposed to be a negative or a downside to the card. Now, some of these things are worse than others. There are a lot of mobility cards. Now, I have all the mobility cards in the game. I've played around and tested most of the cards, not some like with dedicated builds, but I've played all the cards to know what they do. So, start at the beginning. We have the cross trainers. This is based around stamina. It gives you 5 immediate points of health, 3% movement speed, 20% stamina, 20% stamina regen. This is situational. If you're doing a speed run build, you're going to run this. Outside of that, there's really no purpose to it. There are better health cards, better stamina cards, better move cards. It is a good card, though, if you're specifically looking for stamina regen. That's where I would say that this card's strength comes in. Next up is the energy drink. Energy drink is a situational card. It gives you a bit of everything. So it's 15% bonus stamina and 15% movement speed while firing. The stamina is better than the movement speed. The 25% weapon swap speed is pretty good. This can actually remove some of the negatives of other cards. The 10% slow resistance is really good. Although it's difficult to get stacking slow resistance to take advantage of this. So while it's nice, it's not like game changing. If you're looking for like an instant weapon swap type build, this can be really good. Outside of that, I think it's a situational build. Rhythmic Breathing is a good card. It's 40% bonus stamina. If you're running a sprint build, a speed, a speed running build, this is good. Other than that, I wouldn't run it. Melee builds have better cards than it, so it's not something you're going to run a lot. And you're going to see that a lot where a lot of these cards are either situational or bad in the blue category. Reload Drills is okay. It's 20% reload speed and 25% weapon swap speed. One downside that the card has is that Cold Brew Coffee is just better, because it only gives you 5% faster reload speed than Cold Brew Coffee does. So this card, in my opinion, this is a good starter card, but as soon as you get Cold Brew Coffee, this card goes away. So this card, in my opinion, is trash. The Wide Mouth Magwell. I'm kind of conflicted on this. If you're trying to go for an instant reload speed build, this is good in that one situation. The rest of the time, the card is trash, because you never want damage resistance to be taken away. You can lose damage very quickly in this game if you get surrounded and mobbed, and no amount of reload speed helps you in that situation. Damage resistance is one of the few things in the game I try and avoid as a negative effect. Now, for a 30% reload speed bonus, I think this is good for a one card slot. Personally, I would take Reload Drills over this card just because, it's 10% less. So if I'm trying to run max reload speed, I'm not going to run this just because of the damage. Mag Coupler is actually a better card than Wide Mouth Magwell. That is a mouthful to say, by the way. No pun intended. But Mag Coupler itself is not a good card. It's going to fit in situational. This card is good in shotgun melee, where you're going to be using a melee weapon. You don't care about iron sights. You don't care about aim down sight at all. This card gets value. The downside is, most of the guns in the game you want to aim down sight with. Like shotguns and a few other guns you're not aiming down sight. So this can be really good for a super shotgun reload speed build. That being said, the ability to aim down sight to me is still preferential, especially if it's like an AA-12 in full auto. You want a bit more recoil control on it than just, I'm just going to hold down the trigger and it's just going to go all over the place. So, in my opinion, this is a bad card, along with the Magwell's bad card. Slugger and Brazen are both good cards. They're good cards. They're going into every one of their builds. So Slugger in particular is slightly better than Brazen, even though Brazen has slightly better stamina efficiency. This gives you 5% health, and that number stacks as percentage based. Both of these cards are going into two builds. They're going into melee builds, and they're going into bow builds if you're playing around Tala. You cannot run the bow, in my opinion, without these two. These two cards together is 40% bow attack speed, 25% bow stamina efficiency, 40% melee attack speed, 25% melee stamina efficiency. Combined, you're just putting these into everything. The main reason is the stamina efficiency, particularly for the bow, because it basically means with a couple other cards, you only have to play two other cards with it. You get infinite bow. Like, you're never running out of stamina with the bow. You can use it at that point as a close-range machine gun or a long-range sniper rifle. It basically means Tala's never switching off her bow. And for melee characters, this is still good, even though you're not using the bow, because the bow and the melee compete for a secondary. You're still using this for the attack speed. There are other cards that are going to give you better stamina efficiency. This is a must-have for those builds. Meth Head, same category, good card. Now, this is where I said before, you know, the meme of the shotgun build. Melee character is not getting an aim down sight. You're not getting it. So, but you want to run Meth Head. What this does is it means that each melee swing, whether that hits or not, will grant you 5% melee attack speed and 5% melee stamina efficiency, stacking 10 times. This gives you 50% attack speed and 50% stamina efficiency. Which, remember, we've already stacked. We're already stacking with these. And melee attacks no longer get stuck in mutations and SWAT enemies. This is a necessity on a melee character. This is also why I don't run 4 melees. I don't run Heng and I don't run Evangelo for melee. I run the others for melee. I run Sharice and Holly. Because Heng, as a healer, I want him being a little bit more flexible with his card slot. These 3 cards right here are part of the core 5 cards, 5-6 cards that every melee character is running. So for this reason, if you're running melee, you're running Meth Head. You're going to have to deal with the no ADS. You need that bonus. I've tried running it with and without. It's just ridiculous. You can literally run around the map just swinging your melee weapon. You never have to stop swinging your melee weapon, ever. Ridden Slayer. This is 20% weak spot damage. This is a good bonus for snipers and long-range damage dealers. It's situational if you're going for maximum weak spot damage. I think weak spot damage is a bit overrated. It can be really good against ogres and breakers on higher difficulties. Really good. The problem is against normal mutations, you don't need to have a specific dedicated card to that criteria. There's better cards involved than just weak spot damage. And some characters don't even benefit off of this. Most melee characters are not hitting weak points. Most characters with shotguns do not get a big benefit from weak point damage. Similar vein, Reckless Strategy, this is a terrible card. Again, damage resistance is the thing that holds it back. It's 30% weak spot damage, so it's 10% better than the previous card, but with a worse damage resistance. This card is terrible. You don't want to run this card. Hyper Focus. Now, this is 50% weak point damage, minus 40% movement speed while shooting and melee attacking. So, as a melee character, you're automatically not running this card. Like I said before, weak spot damage doesn't matter on melee. The move speed while shooting can be kind of a negative. Kind of a negative. But it depends on what you're doing. Solo Sniper, where you're just like sit in the back and you just snipe and snipe, this card is decent. So this card, despite the trade-off, is better than Reckless Strategy is. It's still a terrible card. Because you never want to be in a situation where your movement speed is slowed. It basically means you either have to shoot or run. You can't do either or. High-vis sights. This is a situational card. If you're looking for aim speed and aim down sights, this is the thing. Aim speed is the speed it takes to bring up your ADS. Move speed while in ADS and move speed while firing, those are nice bonuses, but mainly you're just running this for the 30% faster ADS. This is important on snipers, LMGs, pretty much anything can get a benefit out of it, but it's not mandatory. Obviously, if you're hip firing with shotguns, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, I would run this specifically on a sniper-based character because you want to get that ADS. It can be a good general fill-in card as well, because just aim speed is better. I think there are better options, but it's definitely in the situation. So Tunnel Vision is terrible. Once again, we have the minus 5% damage resistance. This sucks. The benefit isn't bad. So every 3/4 of a second in ADS, you get 5% weak spot damage up to 3 stacks. So it's basically, it gives you, if you stay in aim down sight for around 3 seconds, you get 15% weak spot damage. And it gives you 50% aim speed. This to me is the reason why this card is not bad. This card is not bad at all, but it's in that situational category because of the fact that that damage resistance is a thing. And also, the weak spot damage is nice, but the main thing I would run it for is the 50% aim speed. Steady aim is terrible. So this, similarly, gives you recoil control in ADS, up to 30%, and it gives you 80% aim speed. That's great. The problem is it's minus 50% ADS move speed. So this is again one of those categories for snipers where you're just kind of sitting in the back, and most snipers are not going to need that recoil control. That recoil control is not helpful. The trade-off of the aim speed for the move speed is not there, because the move speed is too big of a penalty. I can get by with 5% damage resistance penalty. I can get by with that. I can't stack them at all. And this provides two good benefits. One that's decent, one that's good. So this is situational, this is terrible. Shooting gloves are interesting. So it's 25% weapon swap speed, which is good. But there's a lot of cards that provide similar numbers. 15% recoil control and 15% accuracy, it's not worth it. The only exception where this build is good is if you're doing maximum weapon swap. Like, you're just trying to switch weapons as fast as possible. In my opinion, you'd be better off with reload drills. Obviously, we've talked about cold brew coffee being a better card. And I believe that doesn't have weapon speed. If you're looking for recoil control, line them up as your better card. So in my opinion, that card is unfortunately just outmatched Shooting Gloves, where it's just not a good enough card to see play. Guns Out is situational. So it's 50% weapon swap speed, that 5% damage resistance, which does, does kind of hold it back. But the main reason is, like I said, I don't mind one damage resistance penalty. I'm not taking multiples. So you're not running this with anything else. And the weapon swap speed, while weapon swap is one of the 3 most important categories in the game, in my opinion. Weapon swap, aim down sight, and reload. Those are, if you're a gun player, those are the 3 most important speeds. Now, reload you can kind of work around. So weapon swap is definitely the one that I prioritize the most out of that group. So this is not a bad card. It's going to be in situational. Cocky is terrible. So this is where we're just going to keep scaling up, where it's supposed to be higher risk, higher reward. It's not worth it. So 75% weapon swap speed. This is good. But whenever you take damage, any damage, your accuracy gets reduced for 3 seconds. And that effect does stack as well. That timer resets every time you take damage for the 3 seconds. That's any type of damage. That's friendly fire damage. That's falling damage. That's fire damage. That's acid damage. That's ridden damage. This card is terrible. Now, the accuracy reduction isn't particularly bad. That's the thing I want to highlight. The accuracy, I believe it's like 10 or 15% accuracy reduction. But anytime you take damage, the stacking on it. Smelling salts. This is a situational card, in my opinion. For revive, I have one character that runs this, and that's it. It's a nice bonus on revive speed. Don't get me wrong, but the thing that just holds it back to me is the fact that it's really not good. There are better cards for specifically reviving. Like, you want benefits rather than faster revive speed, in my opinion. The revive speed is not long. It can be annoying, but it's situational. Pep Talk is a good card. I'm not going to say it's in every build, but it is good if you're building into it. So this is when reviving teammates, you take 3 less damage from all ridden. Now, on higher difficulties, this is really good because enemies do absurd amounts of damage. 3 less damage from all ridden doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're swarmed and you're getting hit and your plan is, hey, I'm just going to revive you, I'll go down in the process, but you'll be back and you'll be in stronger shape. This is a good card for that. On lower difficulties where ridden don't do a lot of damage, remember, on recruit difficulty, most ridden hit you for 3 damage at most. This means you don't take any damage while reviving from commons. In addition to that, teammates recover an additional 10 health when you revive them. That's kind of the lesser effect, but that can also be nice having more health in play. I would prefer if that was trauma instead of health, but it is what it is. Alright, we go to page 3. Rousing Speech. This is a good card. If you are playing around revives and you're playing a support deck, you're going to want to run this. The main reason is this is a team effect. Cards that benefit the entire team are 9 times out of 10 going to be in the good category and not situational. Because of the fact that this is such a team-based game on higher difficulty levels. You will not have ammo. You will not have copper. You will not have healing items. You are going to go through a lot of trauma damage. Anything that can benefit team play, and where these cards stack in team play, is so valuable. Rousing Speech, again, the teammates recover an additional 10 health when revived is not a great effect. It can be. It's not great, though. If you're stacking it with Pep Talk, I would say, you know, because that's 20 bonus health. The main reason you run this is 50% team revive speed and 10% reduced in-cap trauma. Meaning going down, you take trauma damage when you get back up. This is less penalizing. That trauma, because trauma damage is really what kills you on higher difficulties, because you will just get trauma damage build up so quickly. You're not gonna, like, see your health bar past 40 most of the time. So, this is a very good card for that. Dash, it's situational. It's literally only gonna get played in speedrun. It's not a bad card. It's just, there's no reason to run it outside of that one build. Fleet of Foot, same thing, 8% movement speed. Again, situational, speed boost build. It's not a bad card. That's literally the only build that you're going to run it in, though. You're not going to run it in any of the other builds. Even if you're playing around, like, speedy melee. You're not going to do that. Run like hell. Surprisingly, this is a situational card. So this gives you 12% move speed and 15% sprint speed, which are all good effects. The downside is whenever you take damage, you lose its benefits for 3 seconds. I don't have a problem with that, because the goal is to be able to run through everything, avoid all damage, and keep going. So in a speedrun build, it fits in that one build. Outside of that one build, you're never running it, unless you are playing a sniper, and your idea is, I'm just going to run from enemies, quick ADS, and shoot. So it does have some viability. And the downside is much less significant than accuracy reduction. Because, you know, you don't really care about... If you take damage, you don't really care about, you know, the movement and sprint speeds, because your priority now is to shoot whatever damage you. Superior cardio. This is interesting because it's basically the inferior version on Cross Trainers. Cross Trainers is better because it's the exact same stats, but with the less on the 3%. If you're trying to stack it, it's fine. It's situational. It's not garbage tier where you're never going to play it. It's just outclassed. And because it can stack relatively decency, 40% stamina efficiency, and 10 health out of the 2 cards, that's not bad. But most builds don't need the double on it. Next up, we have Olympic Sprinter. This is 30% sprint efficiency for -7 damage resistance. This is terrible. Even on a speedrun build, you're not going to run this, because one thing with speedrun builds is they do not want damage resistance getting knocked down at all. Because if you take a hit, that's going to slow you already. You have to shoot whatever damage you, and then keep running. This card is terrible. Basically, it means that you consume 30% less stamina while sprinting, but the 7% damage resistance is not worth it. Reckless. This is another terrible card. 40% stamina efficiency, so better than this, but the trade-off is still the same. When you take damage while sprinting, you lose all stamina. This means you have to stop every single time you're going to take damage. This card is not worth it. Neither of these cards are worth it. Although sprint efficiency does, you know, make sense, the superior cardio is kind of what you're going to run if you want the sprint efficiency. You're not running either of these cards. Breakout. This is a very good card. Basically, it gives you Evangelo's passive on any other character. Evangelo doesn't need to run this. It's not going to stack. But it basically gives you the ability to press square to free yourself out of a grab. And it has a cooldown of 60 seconds. This card is good against Crushers, Sleepers, Hawkers, and Hag. Hag, this is very good for. Hawkers, this can be good for. Sleepers, this is not worth it. And Crushers, it can be good for. It's a very good card. It's one of the best cards in the game for crowd control and keeping yourself from getting killed, because you're not getting pinned and taking all this extra damage. But you're not going to run it most of the time. This card really only comes into play if you're playing alone, if you're playing with bots, or if all your teammates are dead. Which again, you kind of want cards to keep your teammates from dying, and you want to stay with your team, and you kind of want cards that are helpful for that, not this. But it is very good if you choose to run it. It's one of those cards where it's just not my cup of tea, but it's very good nonetheless. And then we have Combat Mech. This is situational. So this gives you 50% use speed. Now this doesn't affect revive speed. This is use speed of items. And teammates recover an additional 20 health when you revive them. If you're planning on running like toolkits and disarming stuff, this is actually pretty good on that because it gives a nice healing bonus. The main reason you run this is the use speed. This is good for medics, for being able to apply bandages and being able to apply med kits faster. It's also good for defibrillators because you get both bonuses at once, although defibrillators aren't really great in my opinion. It's not a bad card. It's just you're going to run it in that one build. Fire in the hole. This is situational. It's not bad. It's just very niche. Anytime you throw offensive weapon, you get 20 temporary health and 25% sprint of speed for 5 seconds. The temporary health doesn't matter unless your whole plan is like, I'm just going to throw all of my grenades at once because I'm about to die and I need like, you know, I'm going to get like 100 temporary health off of that. That's where that can kind of come in clutch because it basically turns your grenades into a last stand type mechanic. So it has that niche role. The main reason you would do this is you get the 25% sprint speed for 5 seconds. So it's like throw a Molotov, sprint, throw a Molotov, keep sprinting, throw a Molotov, keep sprinting. It has speedrun capabilities. It has healing capabilities. Not bad, but it does require you to build a lot more into it because you have to have an offensive accessory in the first place. Next card would be Medical Expert. So the team effect is healing efficiency. Healing for this card is affected by efficiency bonuses. Essentially, healing efficiency is supposed to be a blanket term for healing in that you apply more healing to a target based off of the amount of healing efficiency you have. It doesn't increase speed. It doesn't increase trauma healing. And that to me is why I like, the more I've played support characters, the less I like healing efficiency as a category. Because it doesn't help me with trauma. It doesn't help me with healing you faster. It just gives you more health when I heal you. If I'm a support character, I'm going to have a shit ton of healing items. I don't care about that. I want trauma. The bonus it gives you is 50% revive speed, which, like we said before, there are better revive speed cards than that. When you use a medical accessory, you heal 1 trauma to the target. 1 trauma is nothing. So, this card to me is situational. It's not terrible where I'm never going to run it, but I'm never going to run it in a build because there's just better cards out there. So next up you have Rolling Thunder. This is a good card. I'm not going to say it's very good. It's a good card. If you play shotguns, you're going to run this. It's 10% bonus damage with shotguns, so this affects the 4 primary shotguns and the Belugian. Although I wouldn't recommend you run that. 35% movement speed while firing shotguns. This is good if you're planning on running and gunning. This is how I have my Evangelo built. It's a good card for shotguns. If you're not playing with shotguns, if you know your character's not playing with shotguns, I wouldn't run this. Other than that, it's alright. Speed Demon, kind of the same thing, but for SMGs. 4% movement speed while using an SMG, that kind of doesn't matter, because you don't want to run and gun with SMGs. Because the accuracy loss is too big. 35% reload speed while using an SMG. That's really good. That affects the Tech 9, and that affects the different SMGs that are out there. The SMGs don't have bad reload times, but this can be really good if you're specifically playing for reload. So, again, it's a good card if you're playing with SMGs specifically. Hellfire. This is a situational card. So it's 3% movement speed when not firing and 45% while firing. Now, this is okay, but the downside is the accuracy loss is too significant when you're running and gunning like that. This can be good on like max movement speed shotguns. But the movement speed penalty when not firing is really kind of a drawback. Well, I shouldn't say a drawback. It's really not that significant of a bonus to see otherwise. So to me, it's situational. Marathon Runner. This is a good card. It's one of those cards that, like Breakout Grab, it's not for me, but it's a good card nonetheless. This removes your movement speed penalty for strafing and backpedaling. Essentially, moving side to side or backing up doesn't have a loss of speed, whereas normally it's about a 50% speed penalty. This is a very good card for a lot of scenarios. I don't necessarily find it worth a slot, but like Breakout Grab, if you do, it's very good. Next up, we have Mandatory PT. This is situational. So this gives your team 10% stamina and your team 10% stamina regen. The stamina itself sucks. The stamina regen is what you're doing it for. Melee, the reason why it's situational, it's not a bad card. The problem is you never have a reason to use it otherwise. Because melee characters have stamina built in. Bow characters have stamina built in. Speedrunners are all about stamina. This card doesn't affect them because they don't care about the team. They're trying to speedrun through. Gun characters don't really need the stamina that much. So the card that, yeah, you can play it. Yeah, it's not a bad card. But there's no reason to play it. Yeah, I'll drop this card down to just bad. Yeah, the more... Like, it's not a bad card to have, but it's never going to justify a slot. It's one of those cards you find in the environment for 500 copper. It's not a card that you go out of your way to get. Pep in your step. This card is terrible. So, precision kills give you 8% movement speed for 5 seconds. Precision kills want you to stay still. Either that or it's just things like shotgunning in the head while running and gunning on Common Ridden. You're not really going to be doing that. This is just a bad card. Now you have Shredder. Now, I like Shredder. Shredder is an interesting card. It's situational. Each bullet hit, which automatically takes away bows and melee characters, each bullet hit causes the target to take 1% increased damage for 3 seconds, stacking up to 15%. So essentially, you can get up to 15% damage by holding down the trigger. The downside to this strategy has to do with what can take advantage of this. Common Ridden die in a couple of shots anyways, so they're not getting the benefit of that. Most guns that are low ammo don't get benefit. The only things with 15 round magazines or larger are ARs, SMGs, a handful, like pistols that are cutting it close, I'm not going to count. Some of the SMGs even cut it close. It's like LMGs and assault rifles and submachine guns. The only characters that really benefit off of this are characters that have high ammo that are using LMGs. Most of the assault rifles are in the 20 to 30 range. So half of your clip has to hit. And even then, it's only on that individual target, which is the second downside to the card. This is good against mutations. Most mutations go down in a clip on pretty much any clip. So you're not getting a lot of value out of that. This is good for hags, breakers, and ogres. I'm not running a card specifically for bosses. So it's situational in that it's a good card if you can get the value out of it. There's no trade-off to it. It's just not worth the slot. Glass Cannon. This is a situational card. Minus 30% health. But you get 25% flat damage. That 25% flat damage is all damage. That's accessory damage. That's gun damage. That's melee damage. That's bow damage. That's fire damage. It's also friendly fire damage. But why it's situational is the health bonus is not as bad as you think. Because you can buy health cards in-game. If you have enough healing supplies, it doesn't matter. And it affects health, not trauma. So you're still getting trauma at the same rate. Yeah, you'll feel the effects much more often. But, I mean, if you can play around being 40 health for an entire level, you kind of don't care about Glass Cannon. It's a good card for damage output. Yes, the trade-off is absurd. I would not use this on a melee character ever. This is good for long range. I want to stay in the back with an LMG, and I never let my finger off the trigger, or a one-shot sniper type build. It's not bad. Sadistic. This is actually a situational card. So this is precision kills, which are weak point kills, give 5% bonus weak point damage for 10 seconds. Now this doesn't stack, but you can reset the timer on it. So it's not bad for a weak point build, because basically each weak point build makes your next weak point kill easier. It's just not necessarily worth the slot. This category right here, we're going to sum up real quick, because most of this stuff sucks. Adrenaline Filled is one of the good cards here. This is a very good card if you're a melee character or a bow character you're playing this. Whenever you kill an enemy, you get 5 stamina instantly, and 7 stamina over 7 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So the way this works is, you can get 1 stamina per second back on top of the 5 up front per kill. This essentially, when you combine this with the other stamina cards for melee and bow, like Meth Head, Brazen, you never stop swinging your weapon. You never stop firing your bow. Because that 5 stamina up front helps pay for your next one. And the additional stamina per second, I mean, that's nice for the regenning process, so to speak, but it's not going to, like, generate it back on its own. The 5 stamina, you get a kill, you get 5 stamina back. Here you go. Here's your stamina back. There you go. Good job. Miraculous Recovery. In my opinion, this is a terrible card. The payoff that you can get is nice. Whenever you use a medical accessory, there's a 25% chance that the effect is doubled. The downside is, when I play a support character, I am going to use my medical accessories early so that my teammate doesn't need 100 healing off of 1 bandage or something along those lines. The situations where this comes, and again, it doesn't affect trauma at all. The situations where this comes up is so minuscule. And in addition to that, it's not even a guaranteed chance. It's 25%. So, hell, it is not worth it in my opinion. Screwdriver, situational card. It's 50% use speed, 10% stamina. It's basically Casey's base card, or Kaylee's base card. I don't know why I call her Casey all the time. But it's basically her crit. It's not bad. If you want use speed, this is what you run. It's not bad for medics. I wouldn't recommend it on, like, melee characters for the stamina. Multi-tool. This is shit. You run Screwdriver. 75% use speed. For 5% damage resistance. I'm not opposed to damage resistance, but again, this is not it. It's not a big enough situation for me. Headband Magnifier. Heyo. This is a terrible card. You do not want to run this. Ever. When you take damage, you have a 25% chance to be blinded for 1 second. It doesn't say 25, it is 25. It's terrible. The blinding is not even that bad. It's just annoying. And it's anytime you take damage. And what's the trade-off that you get for it? You get a little bit of healing. You get a little bit faster healing speed, basically. You get a little bit faster door opening speed. No, I'm not running that. Utility Scavenger is situational. Most of the time, you don't care about quick accessories. If you do, it's a toolkit or an ammo pouch. And basically, if you run this, it means you don't have to buy them in the safe room. The fact that you can sense it is good, but generally, I'm not going through more than 1 or 2 of those a game. So, I can downgrade that to a bad card. Stimulants. This is situational. You're only playing into this on Pain Med build. Pain Meds grant 20% stamina regen, 15% reload speed, 15% weapon swap speed for 60 seconds. If you're building into Pain Meds, which is temporary health, this can be good. The stamina regen makes this a very good build for speedrunners, because essentially the way it works is you're going to pop temporary meds, you're going to run for 60 seconds. When the effect wears off, you pop another temporary health, another pain med, and just keep going. The reload speed and the weapon swap speed aren't great. There's another card you can stack that with to make pain meds better. The downside to me is just that pain meds aren't what you want to run for a healing item. On your mark. This is a very good card. This is a team card. And it triggers on hordes. And that is what makes it good. Horde triggers are some of the best cards in the game and should be like mandatory in every slot. This is good because you remember you're going to have mandatory hordes. And you have... Not right now. You have mandatory cards. Or mandatory horde spawns. And you have your triggered ones like, hey, I triggered a door alarm. Hey, I triggered the birds. Hey, I shot a car alarm. So, because of that, you have your mandatory spawns for mission objectives. And you have that. This card gives you value. Now, what do you get out of this? For 30 seconds, you get 10% movement speed while firing, which is kind of shit. 15% reload and 25% swap speeds, which are good. But you also get 7.5% ammo up front. So in low ammo situations, when some dumbass triggers the horde, this is going to bail you out to get you through the horde. But in addition to that, the reload and the swap speed is just good. It's not going to do anything to like push you over the edge. If you're low health, low ammo, this card doesn't save you from that horde. But it does help you push through them a lot easier. And because of the consistency of the card, that it's a trigger on horde, this is very good. There's also no cooldown on it. So if there's a stacking horde, remember, most hordes in this game stack. There are very few hordes that do not stack in-game. This card becomes pretty good for that. Killer Instinct. This card is shit. Moving on. Well, basically, you want to explain it. So it's 30% weak spot damage. Even at a weak spot build, you don't want to run this. Because it disables your iron sight. You don't want that. Card go bye-bye. Power swap, in my opinion, is a bad card. It's whenever you change weapons within 1 second of reaching low ammo, which is when your game has the reload effect pop up on the screen, you gain 20% bullet and melee damage for 5 seconds on the new gun that you switch to. Now, the downside to this is something I've noticed. I don't know if this is a bug or if it's intended. If you go to switch weapons instead of reloading, you don't get that effect. If you've already started the reload animation, you don't get it. Even if you're within that 1 second. So some guns that you would assume would be good, like the Belugian, are not good. In addition to this, the melee sucks. You would never use it for the melee. You're using it for the 20% bullet damage. Alright, so now, because this page is where we transition over to the red cards, we're going to finish off on this page. Some of these are situational. So, again, Stock Pouch and Mag Carrier, they're both good cards if you're playing the weapon type. Stock Pouch has 30% sniper ammo capacity and 10% damage with snipers. Snipers themselves aren't great. There's only 3. One of them is good, one of them is okay, and one of them is trash. The main reason you run this is the sniper ammo capacity. The other thing that's important to note is this affects the Deagle. The Deagle uses sniper ammo. This gives you extra Deagle ammo. So if you're not playing around unlimited secondary ammo, this is a good card for that. You also have Mag Carrier. This is 30% pistol and SMG ammo. And 10% damage with pistol and SMG ammo. This is good if you're planning on using your secondary a lot. If you're using pistol, if you use SMGs, it's also okay. To me, the downside on this is that why I never play this card, even though it's a good card, because most of the time I'm switching my weapons so much. it's not worth running a card for just 10% damage off of this. Mad Dash is a terrible card. You get 20% sprint speed, but you get minus 40% stamina efficiency. So you essentially are trading the speed that you are sprinting for the duration of your sprint. Not worth it. Stealthy Passage is okay. What this card does is it enables you to crouch, walk up to birds and disable them, and also to disarm car locks and door locks without triggering them and without needing a toolkit. The target will automatically trigger if you get interrupted, and you get 25 copper if you're successful every attempt. Two problems. One, it disables your quick slot, which means you can't run toolkits. Two, disables your quick slot, so you can't take duffel bags and mission items. So this card is impossible to play if you're a solo player. Now the game will, like, let you do it. But the problem with this is that you can't unlock secret doors, you can't unlock warp chests without taking it. It's not hey, I get to, open everything. It's like, hey, I get to run a card where I now get to run toolkits in place of it. Like, I get unlimited toolkits. It's only good for alarms and birds. This limits the number of hordes you have to deal with, and it gives you good copper. Although, to be fair, the birds one is kind of shitty because most of the time your team's going to trigger them on accident rather than, letting you do the animation. So it's situational. But my situation where it comes in handy is copper builds. Pumped Up is situational again. 5% bonus health. And it's basically built around pain meds again. It's good for speedrunners and it's good for mom. Where you get 20% slower temporary health decay and 1 extra pain med spawn. Which that doesn't matter. It's mostly you're running it for the slower decay. Which does stack with mom, so it's 40% slower temporary health decay. But pain meds kind of suck. Now, I don't like any of the ones that replace a slot. I don't like any of the gadgets, so to speak. 1, because they cost ammo, and 2, because they replace that slot. So automatically, to me, this is a bad card. However, if we're going to judge the merits of what it does, it replaces your support slot. This means you have to play with a medic, or you kind of, can't heal yourself outside of food items and the occasional first aid kit. What this does is it grants a cloud that grants 20% damage and 30% reload speed while you're in it. It's not a big cloud. Last 10 seconds. Pretty good. Pretty good if you want to run it. But it takes away your support slot. And it also means you can't use it with snipers because it takes up sniper ammo. Every time you activate it, it's 40 sniper ammo. If you're not playing around snipers, if you're like an assault rifle, a shotgun, submachine gun, pretty good for that. LMG, pretty good for that. You get no value on melee, and you lose your support slot. So to me, it's a terrible card for that reason. It is one of the better of the gadgets, though, out of all the gadgets. Fillable of lead is kind of crap. It's situational. I really don't like it. While you are continuously shooting, you will gain 1% damage, 1% rate of fire, and 5% swap speed for every quarter second you are firing, with the maximum buffs reaching 20. So essentially, after 5 seconds of continuous fire, you get 20% damage, 20% faster rate of fire, and 100% swap speed. Or 80% swap speed. But my math is off. I'm tired. Here's the problems with this. The rate of fire speeding up means you lose your ability to get the maximum stacks because you're firing faster and faster to the point where you can no longer build stacks because your gun is run dry. And because it's continuous, it's not great. This is good with high ammo LMGs, submachine guns, and assault rifles for killing bosses because of essentially just your clip just stacks in damage. If you're looking for a boss killer, this is it. Outside of that, it's kind of trash. The last one is Suppressing Fire, and this is a good card. It only really works if you're playing around 2 guns, which are LMGs and snipers. But whenever you damage any Ridden, you get a 40% chance to slow nearby Ridden by 50% for 5 seconds. The chance is good, the slow is good, and the duration is good. Granted, you're going to be... It limits you to 2 types of weapons, and 5 total weapons in the game. Because there's only 2 LMGs and 3 snipers. But this is a mandatory if you're playing around one of those cards. So overall, this has been a review of the blue cards. I'm going to have 3 more videos coming out over the course of the week for the red cards. For the red cards, the only one I'm missing is Overprotective, although I have played this in-game. Green cards, we're missing Sadist and Fit as a Fiddle. I'm trying to get Fit as a Fiddle before I do the green one, because I want to test that a bit more. Sadist I've tested around. And for the yellow cards, the only one I'm missing is Magician's Apprentice, which I have played around before. So I'll do those 3 videos next, and then we'll have more of a build guide. Because the only card that I'm really hunting to, like, test out and try a bit better is the Bolstered Health one. So, hope that's been